tonight at the Royal Rumble, the WWE Championship is on the line. Yes, it is going to happen. We've got WWE Champion Drew McIntyre defending the WWE Championship against WWE Hall of Famer Goldberg. Now, this is certainly a match that is getting a lot of people talking. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive into this match in this video. And as the time draws closer, I mean, right now we're something like about 12 hours or so at the time of recording away from the Royal Rumble going on the air. So maybe we're, 13, 14 hours away from this Drew McIntyre-Goldberg match. And as the time ticks away and we get closer and closer to this WWE Championship match, obviously, a lot of people are worried. As they would say in Star Wars, I have a bad feeling about this because anything's possible, and there is certainly cause for concern. Now, let's go to the origins of this. Obviously, Drew McIntyre defeated Keith Lee on that Raw Legends night, retains the WWE Championship. You've got the Legends sitting there randomly on the stage, and McIntyre goes to grab the microphone. He's going to talk, and out comes Goldberg. We haven't seen Goldberg since WrestleMania last year, where he lost the Universal Championship to Braun Strowman in about 3 minutes, because that's a Goldberg match. It lasts 3 minutes. That's what Goldberg does. There had been rumours and there had been reports about Goldberg coming back. Of course, we know his contract is to have 2 matches per year. I think he's got 2 years left on that deal right now. So people thought, considering it was WrestleMania season or the start of the Royal Rumble heading into WrestleMania season, Goldberg would be back. There had been rumours about Goldberg possibly facing Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble or facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. There had been lots of talks about what Goldberg would do. Goldberg continues to this day to tease possibly facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania or after facing Drew McIntyre at the Royal Rumble. But Goldberg comes out and then criticises McIntyre, saying, oh, you disrespect all the legends, you don't know what's come before you, all this kind of stuff. And McIntyre standing there like that going, I didn't even say anything. Like, what? Disrespect? Are you kidding me? Bear in mind, during that night, Randy Orton had been going around disrespecting all the legends, but it was Drew McIntyre's disrespect that Goldberg had an issue with. Look at that storytelling, folks. Isn't that great? So that was the issue. Goldberg says, I challenge you for the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble. The match is made, right? And I get it. There doesn't really necessarily need to be a big issue here, does it? I mean, the match sells itself. Does Goldberg, Drew McIntyre need this big storyline? No, it doesn't. In reality, that's just the way I prefer my pro wrestling. I prefer there to be a story involved. I prefer there to be a storyline involved. I prefer them to try and tell a narrative from start to end, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Whatever, okay, that's fine. Obviously, it then gets people concerned because it then leads to the possibility that Goldberg could and maybe will win the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble. Now, obviously, the build to this has been slightly disrupted as well. Drew McIntyre tested positive for COVID-19, so he's been off of television for 2 weeks, returned this past week. They had the confrontation with McIntyre and Goldberg on Raw, had involved John Morrison and The Miz. Goldberg spears The Miz, John Morrison gets hit with a Claymore and they face off Goldberg and McIntyre, and that's how they go off the air. Again, I don't necessarily think that McIntyre testing positive necessarily really hurt the match because I guess it doesn't really need a ton of build. The thing that I think is getting the most attention about this is Goldberg's comments in the press and in the pro wrestling media at the moment. We'll touch on that in a second. But the concern is, as I mentioned at the start of the video, is everyone has a bad feeling about this because there is definitely a possibility that Goldberg could walk away from the Royal Rumble tonight as the WWE Champion. Now, some people might say, oh, but that's impossible. You know, Drew McIntyre, since he won the Royal Rumble 12 months ago, he's been one of the most protected superstars on the WWE roster. Only Roman Reigns probably has lost less matches than Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre's win percentage is something like 95% or something ridiculous. He's had 2 WWE Championship reigns. He barely does jobs. The people he's done a job to is Randy Orton and Roman Reigns. The fact that you can count him on one hand shows you how strong Drew McIntyre has been booked. He's the face of Monday Night Raw. He's the top babyface on Monday Night Raw. Arguably, considering that Roman Reigns is a heel right now, you could argue that McIntyre is the top babyface in the company. Right now, this guy is being pushed to the moon. WWE are very keen on him. He's doing a great job as WWE Champion. There is no way that Goldberg would defeat Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship specifically as well, because of course a Goldberg match is going to last 3 minutes. It's going to be spear, jackhammer, over. We've seen how long Goldberg matches last. Even the long ones last about 5 minutes. So there's no way, right? There's no way that Goldberg would defeat Drew McIntyre in such a short period of time in such a dominating fashion. You would like to think that. But unfortunately, This is the same stuff we were saying last year. This is the same stuff we were saying when it came to The Fiend. Remember, Goldberg faced The Fiend last year at Super Showdown. How could you forget? Also on the road to WrestleMania. And people were saying the exact same things about The Fiend during that period of time, wasn't it? That's what everyone was saying during that period of time. You've got The Fiend, who is this big, dominating character. At that point, I mean, comparing to Drew McIntyre, The Fiend hadn't lost to anyone since debuting that character in-ring at SummerSlam in 2019. The Fiend had lost to no one. He was undefeated. He was the Universal Champion. I don't count the whole Seth Rollins thing at Hell in a Cell. The Fiend was undefeated. Nobody had pinned The Fiend. He was this massive, dominating villain. The whole point with The Fiend is that he was undefeatable. You looked at Goldberg at the time. He was 54 years of age. The Fiend was this big, unique, new creation, one of the hottest and most unique characters that WWE had created in the past 5 or 10 years or something of that nature. People were excited. It made no sense to most people that Goldberg would defeat The Fiend, considering that on the SmackDown prior to Super Showdown as well, Goldberg had speared The Fiend to at least make him seem a little bit vulnerable, and people thought, well, that's just giving Goldberg a little bit of rope, so coming out of Super Showdown when he loses pretty decisively, they can build up to another match at WrestleMania or something like that with Goldberg versus someone else. Well, everyone that was saying, surely there's no way Goldberg would win. Surely not. Surely not. It seemed preposterous. It seemed more preposterous, frankly, than Goldberg winning the WWE Championship tonight at the Royal Rumble. Well, we all, of course, know what happens. 3 minutes, Saudi Arabia, Super Showdown, 2020, and Goldberg defeats The Fiend, spear, jackhammer, and that was it, and a poor jackhammer at that. Now, reportedly, in fairness, there has been a report that's come out since then saying that actually Goldberg didn't want to do the jackhammer because his shoulder was messed up, but Vince McMahon insisted on it. It was a terrible jackhammer. It was a bad suplex, if anything. But obviously, as you can expect, social media exploded after that happened because what people thought wouldn't happen did. And people were shocked, people were stunned that they would destroy an up-and-coming, creative, unique character, monstrous heel like that. And that's exactly what happened. Now, of course, COVID then happened, the pandemic then hit. Originally, the plans was to have Roman Reigns versus Goldberg at WrestleMania for the Universal Championship, but that didn't happen because Reigns obviously stepped away from WWE. So, in the end, they squashed that character, The Fiend, who miraculously managed to recover thanks to the likes of John Cena, and Goldberg lost to Braun Strowman in 3 minutes at WrestleMania. So the whole idea that WWE, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't be naive or stupid enough to destroy their champion, their young, up-and-coming, huge potential champion in 3 minutes. That narrative, I think, has gone away this year. People, rightfully so, are very, very hesitant. People are very, very concerned about what can and might happen tonight. I do think... and again, even if I'm about to say this, my opinion, Drew McIntyre will retain tonight. That's what I think will happen. I think Drew McIntyre will win, and I think he will retain the WWE Championship. But again, I thought that would happen last year. I thought that would happen with Super Showdown and The Fiend. In my mind, there was no way. There was no way that Goldberg would win the Universal Championship last year, and it's exactly what happened. And Drew McIntyre, this worries me as well. Drew McIntyre said on Raw this past week, Goldberg's got a streak of his own forming. Because questions also were, what has Goldberg done to deserve a WWE Championship shot? Apart from that, he's Goldberg. He lost the Universal Championship in 3 or 4 minutes at WrestleMania to Braun Strowman. The whole Goldberg gimmick is that he's this big, dominating, undefeatable superstar. Yes, he's older, which might explain his losses, but he's still the dominating Goldberg of old. He still destroys people in 3 minutes. While in reality, since he's returned to WWE, he's lost. This big, dominating person that never loses, he's lost to Brock Lesnar. He's lost to The Undertaker. He's lost to Braun Strowman. So he's got a few defeats in that win-loss column right now. So again, it would argue, what's he done to deserve a WWE Championship shot? So... my concern then, again, would be that with McIntyre referencing this on Raw, that Goldberg's got a streak of his own, that every time he's returned from a hiatus and challenged for a world championship, he's won. Whether that was Kevin Owens or whether that was The Fiend. WWE, once they've got a streak on their hands, of course they like to break it, but they also like to build it up too before they break it. Again, that would be a concern for me, that they go, actually, we might have something on our hands here. Goldberg's under contract for 2 more years. Maybe this is something we keep doing every single year. Then eventually someone breaks that streak and we put them over as a bigger star. They'll try and justify doing this in some form of way. It's not out of the realm of possibility in the slightest. So again, that concerns me. That concerns me. And as I mentioned, Goldberg, he's got 2 years left on his contract. His whole gimmick, The whole gimmick here is that he's this big, undefeatable monster. If he keeps losing and losing and losing, the gimmick's gone. And he's going to have a match at WrestleMania. He's got 2 matches per year. This is going to be the first match of this year. WrestleMania is going to be the second. Who does Goldberg face if Drew McIntyre beats him in 3 minutes? Because again, that match is going to go 3 minutes tonight. 4 minutes at most. Including entrances, you might get 15 minutes out of it, but you know what I mean. So again, my concern might be they might say, look, Drew McIntyre should win, but if Goldberg loses, his value goes down and down and down even more. They'll justify Goldberg winning the championship that way. There's also been that rumour last year for Super Showdown in Saudi that the plan flying over there was that The Fiend was going to beat Goldberg. Then we get out there and Goldberg, I don't know if he has creative control, but he certainly maybe lobbied to say, look, I should beat The Fiend. He's this big villain. I'm the superhero. I say it all the time. I'm the superhero for all the kids. Should the superhero lose to the big villain? No, of course not. I'm Goldberg. Goldberg wins the Universal Championship. All of that stuff does play into your mind here and factor into what possibly could happen tonight. Now, as I mentioned before, I do think that Drew McIntyre will retain the WWE Championship. I just can't wrap my head around that they would do it again, especially someone that has been pushed as hard as Drew McIntyre. But again, you look at the circumstances of last year, it was even more preposterous last year. The Fiend was undefeated. Drew McIntyre isn't undefeated. All of that sort of stuff. It boggles the mind. And again, it could happen. It really, really could happen. Because you look at the way that Goldberg's booked. You look at that he's going to have a future match this year at WrestleMania. You look at that he's got a couple more matches down the line as well. It does open the realm of possibility that it's not impossible. Now, obviously, it adds a lot of stakes to the match. I think everyone is morbidly curious. I don't think anyone is saying that I'm not interested to see what happens. They might not be happy that the match is happening itself. They might not be happy that WWE possibly are booking themselves into a corner where they have to do a silly title change or something like that. I agree with that. But if I said I wasn't morbidly curious about what can and will happen tonight, I'd be lying. Because I don't want to see social media melting down when Goldberg wins the WWE Championship. I want Drew McIntyre to retain. But I think everyone that's a WWE fan, everyone that's tuning in tonight is morbidly curious. It's like a game of chicken. It's a game of chicken of WWE, teasing that they might do something really bad, and the audience going, "You won't do it. You won't do it. There's no way you would do it again." And that mind of Vince McMahon, he might be like, "Oh, I won't do it. You think I won't do it?" And then they'll put the title on Goldberg. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Something like that could happen. It really isn't out of the realm, and I think that's the concern. That's the concern for a lot of people. Now, again, when my prediction, I don't think it will happen. I hope and I pray, fingers crossed, touch wood, all that kind of stuff. I hope Drew McIntyre retains the WWE Championship tonight. I think he will. I think it's interesting to see where Goldberg would go from there. That would be that again. I don't know. I don't know where he would go from there. There's rumours about him possibly facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania because they're desperate to get that WrestleMania 36 match that they planned and advertised, and of course it didn't happen in the end. But once again, can Goldberg realistically go from a WWE Championship match at the Royal Rumble, losing in a couple of minutes, to challenging for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania? Talk about failing upwards. That to me seems very, very strange once again. So there are ramifications here that don't make a lot of sense, and my concern is WWE have booked themselves into a corner. And when they book themselves into a corner, traditionally, things don't necessarily go that well, which is a massive concern. But as I mentioned, I think Drew McIntyre will retain. I'm still going with the prediction that McIntyre retains, Edge wins the Royal Rumble, and we see Edge versus Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, or Edge versus Roman Reigns. I could be massively wrong, especially with how the first 2 entrants were revealed last night for the Men's Rumble. We'll touch on that in another video today, but again, it's concerning. There's no doubt it's concerning. There is certainly a feeling of people going, surely they won't do it. Surely they won't do it. And if we've learned anything over the years when it comes to WWE, if you don't think that they will do something, they'll do it. Just for the sake of upsetting fans. Sometimes when it comes to good and bad PR, they just see it as PR. And that comes to the same with social media. If lots of people are angry at WWE tonight for switching the WWE Championship to Goldberg, that means lots of people are typing out the words WWE and Royal Rumble. That means the Royal Rumble will be trending. For negative or positive, WWE, all they care about at the moment is that you're talking about the product and watching it. They don't care if it's good or bad. So that would be my worry for tonight. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Drew McIntyre defending the WWE Championship against Goldberg tonight at the Royal Rumble? Let me know your thoughts and predictions in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE Royal Rumble, AEW, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.